they are doing the same thing. It says, verse 9, for we are God's fellow workers. Ye are God's husbandry, God's building. And of course, when I think about God's building, I think about 1 Peter 2 and verse 5, that we are builded together. We are a living structure here. Verse 10, accordingly to the grace of God, which was given unto me as a wise master builder, I laid a foundation, and another buildeth thereon. But let each man take heed how he buildeth thereon. And so, this is the importance of teaching. There are people that, if I left the congregation or I went on to another congregation, I would want them to follow me because I know that they're going to build upon a foundation. But there are people that, when I've left to work and I've just been so disappointed when someone follows me because I know that person, I go, oh man, this is not going to be good. And sometimes it's, just exactly the way I thought. It was not good. But you know what? When we build a foundation and then you start building on it, there is a difference between someone who is a master builder and there's someone who's just a builder, right? There's someone who is just, I think about today. Building a house today and building a house 100 years ago are two different things. You might think that, building a house today, it's a better thing. We're building them better than we ever have. And in some regards, that's true. We have indoor plumbing, we have electricity, we have all these things, and we have that down to a science. We get that. But you know what happens in just about every home? You look around this building, and you can see the effects of this right now. But if you go into any house, it's going to have sheetrock in it, and you're going to have mud in those joints. It's where you can just look, and there's just this one big wall. And then you're going to look around, and if you go into your house, you probably have a baseboard made of wood, right? But you know what? Back, over 100 years ago, even 100 years ago or so, when people build a house, have you ever gone into an old house and looked at the detail of a house? And I would think, well, I know how to do that. But I don't know how to do that with a modern day tool. Or I know how to do that in the way that I measure that these days is a whole lot easier than what they had. And a lot of times they did a lot of this stuff by hand, but they were master builders. I toured. Most of you probably even haven't heard of this, but there's a religious group called the Shakers. Maybe you've heard of them. You probably heard of the Quakers. They're much in that same thought process. But the Shakers, they were kind of some strange people. They did not believe that you could be married and be in their group, and so they had dormitories, and some would be for the men and some would be for the women. And if you were to go there, you can't do this now, but if you go there several years ago, you could do a tour, and they would teach you how to make a broom the way that they'd made brooms, and it's really interesting, and it's just fascinating. But the cool thing for us guys that have ever built anything is you walk around and you look at the houses, and their houses are still standing to this day, over, I think it's 120 years old, some of these buildings, and they were not put together with a single nail or screw. You think about that, that's pretty amazing. Not a single nail. You go through, and they have jointed everything together. All the rafters are like dovetailed and stuff. It is just one of the most amazing things that I have ever seen. And it still stands today. Yet somebody can go and build a house, and they built it in the 1970s, and it's fallen apart now. There's two different types of builders here. One that knows what they're doing, and one that has a decent idea, but is not a master. Well, the master builder, he says, as a wise master builder, I laid a foundation, and another buildeth thereon. But let each man take heed how he buildeth thereon. Be careful what you build. I've not done any stone work really. I've seen it done, but I remember a guy telling me a story, and he said that his dad got mad at a masonry guy. Something happened to their chimney, and it was destroyed. And so they got a guy to come out, a bricklayer to come out and lay it. He said he came out there, and he said he worked for like an hour, and he laid like 8 rows of bricks, something. And he's like, this guy's lazy. And he said he went out there, and he went up, another, 10 layers of bricks. And then he came out the next day, and the guy had knocked on his door and said, did you try to build on what I built? And he said, yeah, you were lazy. You only came in here and you only built like 6 layers of that stuff. And he said, come here. And they walk around out to the side, and if you've ever used brick before, you know exactly what happened. It was all laying down on the ground. He put too much weight on it too soon. He said, look, the master builder knew what he was doing. And someone else came and built thereon. You got to be careful about what you're building onto. You got to be careful how you're building. And so when it comes to teaching the Word of God, you better be very clear on what you're teaching. And you better be right in what you're teaching. Verse 11, for other foundation can no man lay than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. There are people that will go out and they'll give you another foundation. Maybe it's Joseph Smith. Maybe it's the Prophet Muhammad, whatever. They'll lay a different foundation, but there is no other foundation other than Jesus Christ. Verse 12, but if any man buildeth on the foundation gold, silver, costly stones, wood, hay, stubble, each man's work shall be made manifest. Now, I want you to pay close attention to these next few verses, because people sometimes they get confused about it. But they want to say, I'll tell you what they want to say in just a second. Each man's work shall be made manifest, for the day shall declare it, because it is revealed in fire, and the fire itself shall prove each man's work of what sort it is. And so people will try to come to this passage and say, well, you know what? You can have this foundation laid, and you're building on that foundation, and you're using some good material here, and then it's put to the test, and it's destroyed. And that's the thought process going on here. They try to make this a point of it really doesn't matter what you're doing. You're doing what you're supposed to do. And this is kind of the whole, we're all going to heaven, we're going in different ways, kind of a concept. But that's not what the Bible's teaching. The Bible's not teaching that it doesn't really matter what you're doing here. The Bible is teaching something completely different. If any man's work shall abide, which he built thereon, he shall receive a reward. If any man's work shall be burned, he shall suffer loss, but he himself shall be saved, yet so as through fire. So what's going on here is, if anybody is teaching, and he is teaching, he's building upon this foundation, and he is teaching people, he's bringing people to Christ, and then they are lost, well, what's going to happen to him? You think he's going to suffer? I've taught people that, there are people I've taught that have stayed Christians, and there's people that I've taught that have fallen away. And I hate it every single time they fall away. Every single time. And you know what? You do suffer loss when that happens. Sometimes you spend a lot of time with these people. And you keep teaching and you keep teaching, and still something happens. But here's the point. You teach. You build on that foundation. And if something happens with that teaching, if it is destroyed in a person, you're going to suffer loss. You're going to suffer that wood, hay, and stubble, all that. You're going to suffer that loss. But in the end, you yourself will not be lost. You have done what is right. You have taught the right thing. You will not suffer. You shall be saved. Now, brethren, I wanted to make 2 simple points tonight here, and I'm just going to spell it out right now so we get it. One is that you have people that they come to Christ, and this is from verses 1 through 7. They come to Christ, and you are only supposed to teach. You teach them. You don't worry about anything else. God is going to give the increase. It's not about us. It's about people obeying God. That is all that it's about. And so we do our part in teaching. And then sometimes we're going to teach people. And sometimes, we're going to have good material to teach with, so that is good material to use. We've got good people. And they're going to last. And sometimes you're going to teach others, and, well, it's not good soil, if you will. And then eventually they're going to be lost. But here's the point for us. That shouldn't distract us from what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to continue to teach. We're supposed to continue to follow God and be that example. But we continue to teach, and that's our job. Remember, it's not about us. It's about the message. It's about bringing people to Christ. And so when we think about this, that it says here that I planted, verse 6, Apollos watered, and God gave the increase. Well, we're just doing our part. We're teaching, and we give it over to God to let Him do the rest. Tonight, I don't know if there's anybody here that is in need of an invitation. If you have not yet become a Christian, we'd love to help you out with that. If you have become a Christian, but you have not been living faithfully, let us know. We'd be glad to help you out. We'd love to pray for you. Whatever you need, this invitation is yours. Please come as we stand and as we sing.